So if you don't know about MAPS, I guess I'm just wondering more generally where you think psychedelic drugs might fit into the regulatory model, or how they compare and contrast with more traditional psychoactive and other drugs.
Well, I'm not familiar with MAPS, but I believe that treatment with any kind of drug, the psychedelics or whatever, certainly would be looked into more in a different type of model. Right now, the FDA can basically squash any drug development program just by saying they don't find it politically correct. I mean, they don't say it that way, but that's basically what happens. And that's what is happening. That's why the people you're referring to have a hard time getting funding or getting the study off the ground. I think it's still pretty much against the law to do studies on marijuana, for example. It's very, very difficult to do that. And any attempt to do that is met with a lot of red tape, at least. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just about last one, I think even the AAOP and the pediatricians were joining in one of the advocates agreed to get tomorrow last week. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question on your comments about the IP protections. The understanding I have of what you were saying a few moments ago is that it's essentially a matter of the goodwill that's been built up between when the drug company brings it to market and when the generic comes out. And I can understand that compensating for 20%, 30% markup. I don't see compensating for 200%, 300% price differential. So is what you're saying then that intermediary period before the generic comes on market is where all of the R&D costs would be earned back? And if so, what kind of limitation do you see that presenting to the R&D expenditure for each drug and that limit?
Yes, it's okay. The question is about the big difference between generics and new drugs that come out, and is that period, that short period, where the drug company has to recover the costs. And the short answer is yes, that is the period, but they aren't just recovering for that one that's on the market. They're recovering for the 10 failures that also cost them, millions of dollars. And that's where things get tricky, because there are many drugs that are effective and are safe, but they never make it to market because the cost of developing them is so high that they won't be able to recover their costs. I think the last study I saw, and I have to admit it's about 10 years old, was that only 3 out of 10 new drugs recover their costs. So what you're really paying for in any particular drug that's successful is you're paying for all those failures.
Would that be the case? And I would love to believe that we can get rid of the patent laws. There's so many problems with the patent office that it's quite a belief. But from what I'm hearing you say there, that's not entirely consistent with that, because if you want to be putting together a drug that's going to take a lot of R&D for that and for the other 10 studies that fail, isn't it more effective nowadays? Isn't it easier nowadays to reverse engineer a drug that comes out and produce a generic based on that? And isn't that time window between the presentment of the original company's drug and the generics climbing on board going to be that much shorter if you don't have the patents?
Okay, well, I think maybe there's a little bit of confusion about my point there, and I'm sorry I was unclear. The reason that we have to have patent protection today is because development costs are so high that the only way they can be recovered is through a monopoly system, which is what the patent system is. However, in the days when development costs were much less, you didn't need that monopoly protection. You got first to the market, if you were lucky, and you knew you'd recover your costs and make lots of money, and then your competitors actually would come in with their second to the market and third to the market, and they would take a small percentage of your market, maybe 5–10%, but it would be enough, because the development costs were so low. But today they aren't. It's virtually impossible to recover them. I would say it's impossible to recover them without the patent protection. So the regulations have made patent protection necessary. This has always been a dilemma for me since, for example, I developed a cream. I had breast cancer, I had to have radiation treatment, and I knew when talking to the other women that I was going to be in big trouble because I burned very easily. So I developed a cream that protected me from that. And then my neighbors started using it for their cuts and bruises and things like that, and I found it worked against wrinkles, scars, a lot of other things, certain types of tumors. So now I have this dilemma. you know? Do I patent it so it can be developed and people can use it, or do I not patent it and not be able to develop it? You see, it's a dilemma.
Sell it at your table outside.
So I'm just trying to, yeah, and this is a very personal example of how, you know, how that, it gets all twisted, you know? It's very difficult. Okay, yes, over there, you've had your hand up for a long time.
This whole idea of these undue influences and codex, I was wondering, what's your opinion on the influence drug companies have had since they've been allowed to advertise on TV and mass market advertising? It seems to have increased their influence with detriment of, say, natural health. Do you see I'm curious, as a libertarian, do you phase how couldn't advertise restrictions to the mass market?
Well, the question was, what do I think about advertising, direct to the consumer advertising that drug companies do today? And there's been some studies done on this which are very interesting. And those studies show that when the drug companies can advertise, people go, oh, well, I didn't realize there was a treatment for this condition, or I didn't realize this was serious. I'll go in and have my doctor check me out. And so what we're finding is that there's a great educational component to these advertisements, and that the net effect of that is that people, especially people who aren't so well off, who might not, you know, read anything medically related or investigate things like supplements and things on their own, when they hear it on television, which is their medium of education, say, oh, okay, I'll look into this, and they go to their doctor, and then they find out they have high blood pressure, diabetes, or, you know, that some condition that they had was caused by these. So it's actually having a net positive effect on health, because people are discovering things that they can do something about, whereas before they had no knowledge. So that seems to be the predominant effect, which is very nice, because I believe that liberty works, and here it is, it does. Drug companies advertise. There are other problems, as you mentioned, with the supplements. You know, does that push out the supplements? But the reason the supplements are having a problem is because they have a limited playing field. They can't, you know, let's talk about the fish oil example, perfect example. Those of you who follow nutrition know that fish oil is just about a miracle. And it's been touted for a lot of different things, and it's really, really great. I had a friend who may be the only woman to have survived idiopathic pulmonary, not obstruction, what's the other one? Fibrosis, thank you. Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. She might be the only survivor of that. What we did, because it's so, the syndrome looks a lot like liver disease. I know that, I mean, a clinician can understand this maybe, but anyhow, I started her on fish oil and some other nutrients, and she's okay. The only cure for this normally is transplant. She was on the transplant list. You have usually 2 years after diagnosis to live. 5 years later, you know, she's got a personal trainer working out all the time. It's great. Okay, fish oil is great. That's what I'm trying to get across. Now, it's so great that one drug company said, you know, I think we're going to spend all that money jumping through the FDA hoops. And they did. So you can get prescription fish oil. Believe it or not. Of course, your copay is the same amount of money that you would pay if you went to the drugstore and bought pharmaceutical grade fish oil. I know because my sister tried to do it, because she's one of the people that needs it. So it's very interesting that the drug reps can go to the doctors of this company and say, our fish oil is the only fish oil that has been proven and approved by the FDA for all this stuff. So this is what you should give your patients. But you see, a regular fish oil manufacturer, pharmaceutical grade fish oil, should be able to do the same thing, but they can't. It's against the law. So that's where the rubber meets the road on that one. And that's why these regulations, which are what lets the FDA do that, are so destructive. So if you want fish oil and you're willing to pay the prescription price for it and your doctor prescribes it, then you can get it, but it will cost the whole system much more than if you could just buy it over the counter. So our healthcare costs go up. It doesn't matter who pays. This is a point you need to make to people who want universal healthcare. It doesn't matter who pays. As long as the healthcare costs are high, there's going to be healthcare rationing, just like we talked about here. That's the only way the system can work. You've got to bring the healthcare costs down, and trying to mandate decreases won't work. The only way you can do it is get rid of the waste, and the waste is in the regulation.